Here we are with our sixth and the final session for today, referring the decisive whistleblower. The moderator for today's session is Ganeshan Ramanathan, an experienced football administrator who has worked at several youth academies in India and is currently working as the operations executive at the Global Soccer Conclave. Not only that, he has various football coaching and scouting certifications from global organizations to apply his knowledge in the Indian football ecosystem. Over to you, Ganesan. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Surbhi, for the lovely introduction. And with this, I would like to take over and welcome the esteemed panelists for today's discussion, which is arguably the hottest topic of discussion right now, which is having a lot of debates, not only in India, but in terms of professional leagues across the globe, in terms of the decisions of the referees. And it is a very, very critical element for the football ecosystem moving forward. So, without further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce the esteemed panelists for today's discussion. So, first expert is Mr. Keith Hackett. He's a person who actually requires no introduction. He has a wealth of experience across the domain of football referees. So, he's a highly experienced former referee having professional matches officiated for over 30 years at the biggest stage, including FIFA tournaments and the English Premier League. Currently, he is conducting refereeing workshops all across the world and has a clear objective to enhance the knowledge of the laws of the game applicable to managers, referees, coaches, and the players. On behalf of GSC, we welcome you, Mr. Keith.
Delighted to be here and to join this experienced panel in order to discuss the topic that I'm very familiar with, and that is refereeing.
Thank you, sir. So our next expert, who is also highly renowned, is Mr. Vinod Dhanraj, who is an experienced researcher who is currently working as an R&D project manager at Siemens e-mobility. Mr. Vinod aims to bring high-class technology into the refereeing domain to make accurate decisions. And one very interesting stat about Mr. Vinod is that he has cleared 7 professional levels in German football and has officiated a total of 367 matches, both as a match referee and as an assistant referee. So it is indeed very good to have you with us, Mr. Vinod.
Thank you, Ganesan and Surbi, also for the introduction. Thanks to the GSE board, also Dr. Patel and Divya for the organization. And like I said just before to the main audience, I'm very humbled and honored to be a part of this discussion, especially to hear from Mr. Hackett. He's a refereeing legend, and very happy to be a part of this discussion. So thank you for the introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Vinod. So, coming straight into the discussion for today, we all know that refereeing is one such area where there has been always a gray area, and there is no doubt that moving forward, also, we might see several implications of this in the professional game. But first and foremost, I would like to start with the foundations of what refereeing is all about, and ultimately, it all comes down to the quality of education which the referees gain. So my first question is directed towards Mr. Keith, that what is the current refereeing education system that is followed in the UK?
It's a very good question because it's mixed. We have to understand that we have people who referee just for pure enjoyment at grassroots level. But as they get onto the path of the ladder towards the elite level, then changes are afoot in terms of training. So let us take the basics. The basic is the knowledge of the laws of the game. We never stop learning. As referees, whatever level, coaches and referee mentors are always learning. It's about interpretation of the law, and the more experience that we gain, the better referees we become. As we move up the ladder into the elite level, where the pressure for example, on a Premier League referee, is operating under 22 cameras minimum. Then technology, first of all, has to help, and we'll discuss that in the next period of questions. But we also have to then take into account that here is a stadium full of spectators, and 2/3 of the world's population at times are watching the Premier League here in England. A little bit like cricket in India, and how we watch that game and the enthusiasm of the spectators. Here, the training is different. It's about bringing in aids to support the referee. First of all, we talk about sports science. A referee's average distance covered in a Premier League game is 11,500 meters. And 1,000 meters on average is at 7 meters per second. This is in order to maintain contact with play. If we understand refereeing at all levels, there is a basic process. That is to see, to recognize, to think, and act. As the game is at high speed levels at the elite level, then the referee must take on a training regime under the guidance of a sports science expert in order to ensure that they're getting optimum speeds out of that performance. Because you need not only to keep up with play, but you also need to achieve a viewing angle to see. I've examined thousands of games. When referees make errors, it's because they've not seen the incident. So out of that, if we require fitter referees, then we need to talk about nutrition, what they eat before a game, how they go through a recovery period, body mass, fat measurements, which are all part of measuring the performance of a referee. Now we talk about the pressures, and therefore we bring in sports psychologists. The sports psychologist is to deal with how does this referee cope with the pressure? How does he deal with conflict between the players? And we then start talking about the management of the referee himself, by himself, i.e. body language, presence, dealing with conflict, dealing with players, and dealing under the pressure. And then, of course, to make certain that we're getting optimum performance out of referees, we will talk about vision science. And part of this learning process as well, at all levels, is about self-analysis. It's about self-analysis to recognize, here are the laws, how am I performing? And every referee must have a diary, must put in my opinion, a short précis of their performance, what they considered to be 2 strengths and 1 weakness. They can measure that. And then to actually have discussion. So the ideal way of learning refereeing is to learn from others. And therefore, this is why I've conducted workshops across the world where we've got referees at various levels having open discussion, learning from each other. And of course, the assessors who are watching those performances, passing on their skill sets to everyone. Finally, how to manage an event. If you're officiating a Premier League game and you kick off 1 minute early and the goal is scored, then it's likely in India or in Australia or South America or anywhere in Asia, you've missed the goal that might be scored in the opening minute. So we're now talking about the management of an event, how you manage a professional game. So great question. Tiers into the structure and variables in terms of the learning curve. So important, though, that the referee always takes on board he's never finished learning.
Thank you so much, Mr. Keith, for that wonderful insight. It is definitely an eye opener for all referees who aspire to go to the professional level, that it is very important not just to officiate matches, but also to learn from the experience and ensure that you are self-critical and analyzing your performance on a daily basis. So moving on, we all know that definitely referees also have a pyramid in place, and I would now like to direct my question towards Mr. Vinod that do you feel that there are a certain number of matches for the referees to move from one level to another in the football pyramid, and what are the current regulations for the same?
Okay, so it's actually got to understand the question differently. It's not the number of matches, but how the referee performs. It's the performance. But of course, when you look at the base, I'll probably go till the semi-professional level, and I think Mr. Hackett is the right person to take it up further than to the professional level and how the grading goes from there. So when you start refereeing because you really like to be on the field. So I started refereeing because I finished my playing career in India, and then when I went to study abroad, my brother told me, I'm not going to take care of you and your injuries. You better do your studies, and that's it, you know. But then I thought, okay, but I love football. I want to be on the field. What's the next best option? It was refereeing. It was, of course, also like a coach or a trainer, but I thought, no, I want to be on the field. I want to feel that action. And then you start refereeing just for the love of the game and the passion. And there you just like to be on the field. So starting off at the amateur level, at the grassroots, you can progress to the next level very quickly because you start refereeing youth games, and once the refereeing, the management, the club wants to put you on to the next league, it's easy to do that, but that's only at the start. After that, once you start building up and you start entering the city leagues, where you have assistant referees with you, it's not more about the number of matches, but it's performance based. And the more matches you referee, the more experience you get. You're used to different situations, you see different conditions, and you start growing or maturing as a referee. So two leagues under the Bundesliga is where I reached. And even at that point, you can progress every year, but I was refereeing on an average 40 to 50 games a season, but 10 games were assessed. So you have a grading system for 10 games. It was a flexible system that was put into place where you have 6 games, which is the minimum, which you would be graded at, but you can take 10 matches to actually improve your average score. And that's a well-rounded system where in Germany, it's called the Beobachtung system, where you have referee assessors coming in from different footballing clubs and bodies to rate and score you. So I would say it's a mix of both. It's a mix of your passion and what we've seen, or in my experiences, of course, you won't see a referee progressing to the next stage who's doing the bare minimum. But also it's important that you have quality in your refereeing. And the more that you do, the more you learn. It, of course, matures you as a referee. But on the other side, I've seen, I did tell that once the referee assessor, it was my 3rd match on the weekend. And of course, I was not at my highest performance level. Your legs are tired. Like Mr. Hackett said, you're not in the right positions. You're not running your diagonals. You can't make that important decision. So it's a balance of both. You need the matches to be very good at it and get the experience, but also you need to referee at a certain quality, and it's not just the quantity that matters. So in Germany, you have a certain league where a system where you start off at the youth level and then you move to the city level. It's called the Kreisliga, and then you move up every league. The Bezirksliga is the district, then you go to the Landesliga, which is the state, the region, then you go to the Bayernliga, which is the complete council of city, and then you move on to the regional leagues. And once from there you move up to the Bundesliga, the Dritte, Zweite, there's the 3rd, 2nd, and the 1st. And of course, it's a different league altogether, where I pass it on to Mr. Hackett to explain to us how that system progresses.
I think that one of the interesting bits here is that in England we have about 30,000 registered referees. I know because I was the UEFA convention manager for Germany over a period of 2 or 3 years, that there are 80,000 referees in Germany.
Yes.
So you can see that Vinod has had and operated in a very competitive environment, and that is refereeing. Every game is a cup final. and certainly ones where you are being assessed and marked is really important. But I think you've got to get into good habits, and every game is important that you officiate. When you reach that level of becoming, if you like, a semi-professional environment as a referee, then you're assessed more frequently. And before you get to the professional level, i.e. the Football League. Let me give you a guidance, because I think a lot of modern referees in countries get very frustrated because they start refereeing and then they think in 2 or 3 years' time they're going to be at the elite level. We see this in our country, and I've seen that in other countries. The reality is that if you take our current top referee, Michael Oliver, he spent 8 years at grassroots level, moving up the pyramid, before he was introduced into the professional game. I can tell you that in my era, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, which is a long time, I personally officiated for 12 years at grassroots level. And when I became a professional referee, in the sense of refereeing at the professional level, I always refereed at grassroots level. So I think that what we have is, as we move up to the very elite level, then we really do get forensic in the referee's performance. So I can give you an example of Howard Webb, who refereed the 2010 World Cup and is currently boss of the pro referees in America at this moment in time. We would look at his performance, first of all, through a system called Prozone. That gave me a video, but it also gave me alongside a tool that showed the speed and speed profiles of his movement, his distance from ball when he was making decisions, his body language, his signals. For example, often I see a referee not holding the signals long enough or being untidy. You know, and I say to referees, get him in front of a mirror and make those signals so that people can see exactly what you're giving, because this is the important method of communication. So that very elite level, it becomes very detailed. And we start looking at the interaction. How is that referee not only applying the laws of the game, how is he managing the players? At what period did he ebb and flow the game, and how did he react to the pressure? How did he react to communicating with his officials, his colleagues? Now that's operating at semi-professional level. I know that's Vijay will have come through that, but at the elite level, we're looking at more than just the decision making, how that decision making is reached, when that error is made, because all referees are human, we make errors. How did that error happen? How can it be avoided in the future? Was it because he was in the wrong position at the wrong time? You know, so all these things are analysed in detail. But look, 30,000 referees in England, and only 20 are operating at the Premier League level, and a further 20 at the Championship level. So it is a very competitive environment, and continues that, and gets tougher as you go up the ladder.
Exactly. And just to add to what Mr. Hackett was saying, if you can't take feedback as a person, forget being a referee. You have to be able to get criticism, feedback, and sometimes it hurts. I do remember even in the semi-professional league, you go home on a Sunday and you think you invested 8 hours of your hobby time, you've invested probably 25 hours over the weekend, and you come back with such criticism, but then you got to get back and learn from everything and take it positively. And the higher you go, the more you get criticized.
Yes. Well, I mean, if Vinod is absolutely right, because, you know, the games are covered by television. Sometimes television exposes error. There's plenty of newspapers that are reporting on the game and your performance at times. And it can be tough. But then the enjoyment. I mean, I've been involved in over 100 countries, visiting either as a referee or as a lecturer or someone that's educating referees, the enjoyment that you get out of this game as a referee is absolutely fantastic. And in addition to that, good health. And I think it's interesting that a lot of my colleagues who have refereed are now managers in industry at a fairly high level, because they do, those experiences and skill sets that you build by way of communication, by way of dealing with pressure, are skill sets that are very acceptable in an industrial environment or an office environment.
Exactly. I can only add to that just a funny story. So my boss at work at Siemens, he came up to me one day and he said, "Hey, I didn't know you were a referee," because there was a write-up in the local newspaper where he saw one of my games. And he said, "You know what? You're getting free conflict resolution and manager training." Yeah. So, he was very happy about it. So it really rounds you as a person, as a personality. Like I was saying, you learn how to take feedback, you know how to take decisions. You're mostly in situations where you have to think quickly, you have to take decisions, you have to probably try and think about the consequences of your decision. How do you resolve conflicts? I can only add and say it really helps you in your professional career if you're in any corporate environment.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vinod and Mr. Hackett. It was really something which gave us a good insight about it is very critical to have that feedback at all points of time, because we understand that as a referee you need to go up the ladder, but also it is important to understand that they need to keep learning on a daily basis and ensure that it is not just about the number of matches, but it is about how they perform and rectify their mistakes if they're doing any mistakes. So with this, I would like to move to the next aspect of today's discussion, which is also very critical at all levels of the pyramid, which is the evaluation system for the referees. So to assess their performance, we all know that yes, there is a structure in place, but I would now like to understand from Mr. Keith as to what is the existing evaluation system for the referees.
Again, I think it's variable. At the Premier League level now, it's more of a electronic system that analyzes every decision and then computes the performance level. For me, I'm not entirely happy with that, I have to say, because one of the things about refereeing is building a personality and understanding. If let me try and explain. If you think about a boiling kettle or a kettle on the heat, what you're trying to do is you're quite happy for the bubbles to be appearing on the surface, but you don't want steam. Because if those bubbles really turn into creating a lot of steam, then you're at risk of perhaps losing control of the match. So the idea is that when you're evaluating a referee, it's how he is controlling the game, how he is applying the laws of the game, how he is interacting with players. Is he accurate on his decision making? And as an evaluation, Vinod is absolutely correct. Everything that feeds into you is usually seen as a negative by the official. The first thing that you look at is not the praise that you receive, but the criticism. And therefore, you've got to get balance into the performance. So the evaluation system is broken into the personality of the referee, the application of the laws, the communication, the decision-making accuracy, teamwork, and a resume. That's in a very sort of basic format. What we are able to do electronically is measure distance from ball, the actual accuracy of the decision, right or wrong, and then to take that further, because if the game is videoed, then we can use that video as a complete learning tool. So I think the first thing is to ensure in every country that those that are assessing the performance of referees have a degree of quality as a former referee, but also maintain again their education of the game and to meet and if you like, live with the times. The detail is easy, right or wrong. Was the law applied correctly or incorrectly? And if you're evaluating the system, let's take the system that I operated. It was marked out of 100. Various sectors were broken into blocks of 10. And we knew that if a referee operated and secured a score of 59, then that would be pretty poor in terms of the merit table. All these figures, by the way, would figure and be projected onto a merit table.
Just to add to that, Ganesh, to give you a view of how it works from the grassroots to the semi-professional level, like Mr. Hacker was saying, in Germany we have a grading system, goes up to 10. So every referee starts at 8.2, and for every wrong decision that you make, you get, depending on the gravity or the weight of that decision, you get negatively graded from -0.1 to up to 1, and then you take the average of that score at the end of the season with all the other referees. So even 6 leagues lower than the professional leagues, you have 30 referees operating that season, and the 3 referees with the lowest score get relegated. So just to give you an idea of how it works, if you get one goal decision wrong in your grading of 6 games, it pulls down your average from an 8.2 to somewhere around 7.9, and you can almost forget your season. It's almost over.
See, I think that one of the things is that the higher you go up the ladder in terms of refereeing, the more severe the penalty is by way of an error. Because if we take the elite level, for example, when I operated as a boss of the Premier League referees, if there was a serious error, an incorrect goal that Vinod has just referred to, the penalty of that is that financially they suffer, but they wouldn't have a game the following week. So they would lose, if you like, immediately. And we would then be responsible as a management team to ensure that we're giving the appropriate operational advice to that referee. We take them out of the heat, if you like, of the furnace of the Premier League, and we then sort of re-educate to try and avoid that error. But that error is also examined by the other referees in a workshop, so that we can all learn together and we can all find ways of saying, how can we avoid it? But the system that Vinod has operated is a system that UEFA operate throughout the 54 nations of Europe. And it served its purpose for a long time. The Premier League, with a reasonable amount of money, can invest in other methods of examining performance and become more detailed.
Yeah, I think definitely both of you have summarized the overall evaluation system, which is so very crucial. You have summarized in Germany, Mr. Vinod, and Mr. Hackett definitely has all the experience in Europe. He has seen the UEFA and he has seen how it is being operated in the English Premier League as well. And now coming to the most crucial aspect of refereeing in the modern era, that is the role of technology. And what does technology bring into the decision making of referees? So my next question now is directed towards Mr. Vinod, who is doing extensive research in this field and how technology can play a crucial role. So the question is, what are the currently available technologies which can ensure that human error is reduced in the case of referees?
Yeah, so to start off, I must say, we must all be thankful to Mr. Hackett for pushing technology in football. So he was the one responsible for bringing the technology into the Premier League, and the technology that we enjoy as people who love technology, seeing it in the sport. Of course, there are 2 ways to this, but it's a humbling moment for me to speak about technology in the presence of Mr. Hackett. So going on, for me personally, this is something that I really take very closely to heart, because as an engineer and working technology is something that I really like, and I try to include that in football, what we're doing. Just to give you an example, just out of personal experience, like Mr. Hackett said, in Germany, there are 80,000 referees refereeing a game every weekend. And 14,000 of them, they say, are under the age of 18. So talking about technology, not only at the highest level, for me, it's important to see technology also in the grassroots and also going up to the semi-professional level, because sometimes it can be really bad consequences for certain errors that could be avoided. So an example, when we're refereeing, and as a referee, you're always trying to look at your assistant referee to see if he's raised the flag. Is it an offside decision? Did he wave for something? And sometimes in my experience, I've seen I'm near the penalty box and I don't have that second or two to look up to the right and look at my assistant referee, because I can miss something. And that's why I'm a big fan of the communication system, which the referees now use, the referee pages system developed by this company in Switzerland, where you have that vibration on your arm and you don't lose that second of looking up. Now, how do you bring that technology to all the referees or the games in a way that everyone can use and learn technology? So when someone tells me that, you don't need to give technology so early, I would ask them, then why would you use technology in education, in the education field? Or you see everybody having a phone from 13, 14 years. The age in Germany is with 12, you can start doing your referee course or your first referee examination. So it's a balance. Yes, I do know that you have to practice. There are some referees who still referee today with me in the semi-professional leagues who don't use any technology. Hats off to them. But I don't support that. But how do you get technology also that is less expensive? And you see that also in FIFA. Right now, FIFA has a FIFA innovation program, and they work on 4 clusters. The second cluster is officiating technology, and they have 6 challenges. So if you want to provide a solution to FIFA, you have to try and answer one of these or provide solutions to these 6 challenges. And 3 of them are in officiating. And now there's one challenge where they want to use the goal GLT, or the goal line technology system, but a light version where it's easy to develop, easy to implement, not so expensive, where you can roll it out to different stadiums. So coming back to your question, Ganesh, actually, what technologies are present at the moment? We all know the goal line technology and the VAR system. Very excited to see the semi-automated system. I'm a big fan of artificial intelligence, how that's going to work out. And I would like to hear what Mr. Hackett has to say. But before that, I'm also a big believer, a promoter of having technology as much as possible for all referees. Some games are very difficult, where it's a derby, there are people watching you, it's maybe the 5th league, but you can really avoid mistakes, give a really good performance if you have that extra aid, the technology aid with you.
Thank you, Mr. Vinod, for sharing that insight on how technology is playing a key role in ensuring that all the referees are able to communicate with not just the linesman and the 4th official. It is very important for them to use that technology at the right manner and ensure that all the mistakes are resolved. So moving on, talking about technology, now I would like to direct my question to Mr. Keith, that we all know that the video referral system or the VAR is having a very gray area at the moment. Do you think in today's scenario it is reducing the tempo of the modern game?
Look, I think Vinod spoke very clearly, very eloquently, and I agree with him 100%. I'm the guy who sat there and, or even had to, on a football field, run and try and deal with the problem that Vinod has just said. Is it a penalty? What is my assistant doing? Of course, to only get communication from the assistant was to actually look and see the flag. So as a result of that, I looked at other sports and introduced the communication kit and the buzzer flag and also goal line technology. So I am very pro the use of technology. What I think is important is that with any form of technology, and it has to advance. I mean, I'm looking forward, to the AI system, because I think that's the advancement that we have to make. We know that if we look at VAR, And we compare that to goal line technology. I'm the guy that stood up and said, I want goal line technology after a goal was missed in a game between Manchester United and Tottenham. I convinced the Premier League to invest in goal line technology. To achieve what we've achieved means that you've got to have 7 cameras around each goal operating at 500 frames per second through the technology system. So for me, that bit is very clear. The criteria that I laid down with Hawkeye was I didn't want the human being involved in the decision-making process. I wanted it to be automatic. So when we go to VAR, I think that we've experienced problems in England in the Premier League, and I've been very critical. Not because I think that it was rushed, and of course I think there's this mix of the human element and the technology, and I think the interface between the technology and the human element on the English Premier League is some distance away in terms of the performance that I would expect. So I look and would consider that, first of all, there needs to be an independent panel of VAR experts. Their performance is monitored very carefully, their accuracy monitored, and they're almost assessed after every game, just like the referee. Operating to a very close, clear criteria. So for me, VAR has still some work to do. And I think the area that it's had most criticism is really on the offside decision-making process. And I think with the introduction of AI in the World Cup upcoming, that will enhance VAR. But I think at grassroots level, we've got to look at how we bring in body cameras as a form of protection for the referee from a security aspect. Can we make better use of those? What other formats of technology can we introduce? We should never stop looking at pieces of technology that we can advance to help the referee. In training, if we want to be a pilot, the pilot has to go through flight simulator training. I have exactly the same view. Let's create a model flight simulator, but for referee. So we can put referees under pressure, making decisions and improve performance. So VAR, yes, I want to see it operate, but it's not going to help the referee at grassroots level because it's too expensive.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Keith, for sharing that insight on the VAR and how there is still a lot of work to do, not just at the elite level, but also it has to be implemented at the youth level so that things can move in the positive direction. And I would like to come back to Mr. Vinod when he was talking about the role of technology and how there is going to be a new introduction in the upcoming FIFA World Cup in Qatar, where we will be seeing offside technology, wherein there will be 29 body points which will be assessed from the technology side to check whether a player is offside or not. And not only that, there is also a situation where there will be a sensor used within the ball which will ensure that all the accurate decisions are made. So I would like to know from you, Mr. Vinod, that what is the kind of implication that this kind of technology can have moving forward?
Yeah, great question. Just to add on to Mr. Hackett's answer, wonderful answer, and I was just thrilled to hear and see that we want advanced technology. And like the point where Mr. Hackett was saying that you can't have a VAR system at the grassroots level or something like that. Just out of interest, I think very few have seen this. I was working on a solution of how you can bring something similar to something like that. So if you see my phone, I don't know if you can see it clearly. I think it's because of the blur. It's not possible. There is an app. So this app, when you click on the button, it sends an offside decision notification to the referee on the field. Why I say this is because in certain games, you have a better view if you're sitting in the stadium.
Yes.
And for some matches where if you really want to make sure that, you know, there are maybe 1,500 people there, it's a game where you really want to get your referees on the go, you really want them, there should be probably an agreement with the organizing bodies to say, okay, can we have a certain system in place which will help or improve? Maybe there's an assessor sitting on both sides who can quickly buzz the main referee to maybe have a word or talk, because at the end of the day, it's an interesting question. I would really like to know or hear what Mr. Hackett has to say about this. What is more important for us at the end of a football game? The emotions or getting right decisions? Because this is a topic that everyone is talking about. They say the VAR removes the emotions from the game because the player doesn't know if it's a goal or not, because there's a camera going to check that very soon. But then I'm a firm believer of you have to get it right. Emotions are important, but at the end of the day, you have to be able to make the right decision. And I would love to go back from a game knowing that it was an amazing game and there was no decision that spoiled the outcome, rather than saying, oh, you know, I couldn't celebrate so much because I had to wait for the VAR. So just on that point, Mr. Hackett, I would like to really hear what your thoughts are on this.
I think when we started to introduce technology, it was about the accuracy of the decision. And I think that has to be the forefront of what is technology for. It is to improve decision-making. And I think that we have to be patient. I think that one of the criticisms that I've had of VAR is that if we look at other sports, particularly rugby union, when the VAR is coming into play, it's on the big screen in the stadium, and the referee himself communicates with the VAR equivalent, and they discuss the decision-making process. The fans can listen into that. So at the professional level, I still think that we need an open, if you like, communication link so that fans can listen in to the discussion between the referee and VAR. I think that ultimately, at the end of the day, think of the team that's lost and have been knocked out of a cup competition because of an error by the referee. Think of the player who has been incorrectly sent off, or that incorrect penalty decision. And, you know, the higher you go up the game, look, it's important at grassroots level to get decisions right. But when you move into the business end of football, where there's millions of pounds on every point earned, then you want the correct decision. And I think we've just got to accept that the game is slightly different. We've got to be a little bit patient. I think that the governing bodies and the leagues around the world and the referee education that's going in is all about trying to speed up the process. You know, I was able to do that. We moved from 100 frames per second cameras on goal line technology to 500 frames per second in order to reduce the delay time on the decision. And I think that it is the advancement of the technology. I think the AI system will speed up the process because they're now putting in the technology that's required to judge offside decisions, that it's not just a simple line of which the ball crosses, it's a much more complicated view in terms of offside. So to the question, any technology that can cascade down and be cost effective at grassroots level is important. Buzzer flags are important at grassroots level because, you know, I don't think we should say that referee's got to go through pain barrier and in order to learn something about looking up and seeing his assistant referee. Look, the more experience we get as referees, the more time we have, built-in confidence, we are actually developing time. The brain power understands, I've seen this before, I need to react and I can react to it. So we just have those few extra seconds that we gain in the decision-making process. The young referee doesn't. And of course, when he's then told afterwards, you got a decision wrong because you didn't look at an assistant referee, he feels the pain or she feels the pain. That error could have been avoided with a simple buzzer flag. So I'm with you, Vinod. Get the costs down And even let's fund through various processes, use some of that money that the elite level clubs earn. We've just seen in this transfer window of players, we've just seen 1.5 billion pounds exchange hands here in England, in the English Premier League. Some of that money could be used to make refereeing more enjoyable at the grassroots end by developing the technology to be less expensive. The more we have, the less expensive it should be.
Under 1% of that amount would be more than enough to get something really good in the market. Just
Absolutely.
saying.
You and I know that.
I think
Yes.
definitely I can summarize in a nutshell. It is just that the emotions are running too high when we watch or follow football. But at the end of the day, we know that technology is there to stay, and the referees need to make adequate use of it. Even in situations like the Premier League, I have seen that the main referee during the match is hesitant whether he should check the monitor, because sometimes he gets a signal that everything is fine, but there is a situation where he needs to see the monitor to make the most accurate decision. So
Yeah.
there is always lack of uniformity, which is still have to be worked in the future, and ensure that VAR can be a very good practice moving forward. And as I was asking Mr. Vinod about the use of AI in this year's World Cup, so I would like to know your thoughts about what are the future implications of using this FIFA's offside technology, and what can it bring to the game?
Well, if I can come in, I think that what you've got the development of this technology, which will initially be at the elite end only because of the cost. So I think this is the problem. As you develop the technology and incur heavy costs, those costs have to be borne by someone. And I think that this is the barrier to entry in terms of cascading down. We're talking about 56 cameras here, a huge amount of expense to ensure that you get the offside decision accurate. So for me, I think we've got to accept that some technology will not cascade down. But as Vinod has just explained, he's got an app on his phone, because technology advances so quickly. He's got an app on his phone where someone in the stand can actually press a buzzer and say to the referee, that's offside. So I think there are all ways in which you can enhance, but we must remember that the referee is the sole decision maker. And he must have that authority to ensure that he maintains control. And he's, if you like, the guy that, for want of a better phrase, carries the can when it comes to refereeing. He's the one that's making the decisions. He's got to be, frankly, confident that whatever the outcome of any technology that's there to help the referee gives an accurate decision.
Thank you for that insight, Mr. Hackett. So I would like to pose the same question to Mr. Vinod as well. What do you think about how this kind of offside technology will have a bearing on the future?
I can only agree if there's more than 100% with Mr. Hackett. He's nailed the point. It's exactly what I also believe and understand. Because if you take a match and if you see Cristiano Ronaldo shoot the ball maybe 15, 20 meters into the stands, you just say, oh, he didn't time it well. But the same decision, if a referee makes a wrong decision, that's going to be spoken about, put in the media, in the news channels. You would probably hear a 1-hour discussion on that. You would see different camera angles. You see, so the gravity of the situation for a referee is much more than even a world-class footballer who earns billions, right? So how do you help them? And I can only say that technology is just a small amount. Of course, the higher you referee, like Mr. Hacker was saying, he's been at the highest level. Your decisions are seen by much more. They have much more consequences. That's why you need the best technology. And I still do feel it's just a minimum. It's a minimum amount of what actually the players are earning for their performances. And no one talks so much about a shot that goes 20 yards away, right? So we have to invest, and of course it's very important that technology is there, and it's something that I see as a development in football also, how players have different technologies to help their performance. It has to go hand in hand. I don't think it's fair to start talking about a referee and criticizing his performance, and then talking about I don't want technology on the field. So in the same way, how a player trains and the gadgets that he has on his body and the amount of effort they put in to invest in even the stockings or the football boots, we should be talking about the same thing also in refereeing. And just to understand that a refereeing, it's almost like an individual sport. A referee trains by himself during the week. He has to make his kilometers. He has to do everything. As a player, it's always a team. So you see, there's a lot more hard work involved, which people don't actually realize. And that's why also, even in technology, they feel it's not that important. It's removing the emotions from the game. It's not that. I mean, if you can say that, then don't criticize a wrong decision and accept it as part of the game. But we don't see that happening. So the more technology we bring in, it's only for the betterment. And also, there are different solutions you can scale down. So like I was saying, so this app that I have, I tested it with my wife who's in the US. She could press that buzzer and I can get the beep on my armband. So you do have different types of opportunities where you could scale down technology to give referees that extra aid. And also out of experience, I've just seen when you walk onto the field, showing your gadgets around, of course, you put it under your referees, there's a certain amount of respect that you've already achieved because they know you've come here to do your best and you've come here to give them your best performance, and they know that you're sincere at your job. And that also plays a big part in how a referee is seen by players. And I think technology plays that role where you're using as much as possible to make the right decisions and give the players who have worked hard the right decisions and the team and the management behind that. So that's my take.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Vinod. I think you have given a very different perspective about what refereeing brings, not just in terms of using the technology, but also understanding that refereeing requires a lot of activities on the pitch. It is not just about making the right decisions, but it is also about getting that respect for what job they are doing on the pitch. So with this, one crucial aspect which I would like to ask Mr. Hackett is about how do referees cope up with the pressure of the game, especially if they are, managing high class matches, maybe a derby match, which is of immense pressure? How do referees prepare going into such games? Is there any kind of,
I think that's a,
standard protocol which they follow for that?
I think it's important that let's just take the physical aspect first, and that is very much about what you eat before a game, when you eat, and so nutrition is important in that aspect. I think that you need to understand the two teams that you're going to officiate, the players that are on the field. So the preparation, when I first started my career, I just arrived at the ground and refereed the two teams, and they were red against blue. Now what you have is you need the knowledge. The knowledge can help. For example, if you know that a team is playing a high pressing game like Leeds United, then you can prepare for that. You know that you're going to be doing a lot of running, and you know that you may have to apply advantages, an increased number of advantages to keep the game flowing, because you can suddenly blow for a free kick and the ball is in the back of the net. So you're developing time. So preparation is an ongoing process. It's about getting into the best habits. I used to pack my kit myself Friday evening for a Saturday game. I made certain that everything was there, and I double checked it. I wasn't afraid, and I arrived at the ground sometimes 3 hours before a kickoff, sometimes 4, in order to do the geography of the field, the ground, to feel the build-up to a game. I've got colleagues now. in my period of active officiating, I would have different assistant referees, linesmen every week. When I took over the PGMOL, I brought them into a team environment. Said, right, these two colleagues here are going to work with this referee almost every game at the elite level, so that they could then interact, get into the very best habits. It became, if you like, a team performance. To reduce that 1 against 22, it's 3 against 22, and the fourth official also watching. And then understanding the managers in the technical area. How do they behave? And how do we deal with those? So preparation is a big subject, but knowledge is the key. Arrival at the ground is important. We know from a sports psychology point of view that operating in an unfamiliar area can add pressure to the individual. So I used to send, before a referee went to a stadium, a new referee, he would go as fourth official first to get used to the geography, understand where the dressing rooms are, understand where the pitch is, and the home fans and the away fans. So I think a lot to do with preparation is yourself, so you're confident. I used to go out onto the field 1.5 hours before the game with my two colleagues. I used to run through my pre-match instructions in detail. 1 hour before kickoff in the Premier League, 1 hour 15 minutes before kickoff, there's a security meeting. So understanding where the away fans are and how any sort of security matter is dealt with. A fan coming onto the field, rarely. Leave the police to deal with that. So I think all those aspects are taken into account. 1 hour before kickoff, the team sheets come in, we check the team colours, we meet the managers and we meet the captains. And in that sense, we can perhaps use the captain then on the field of play. So great question. I think generally a standard of operation is something that you, as an individual referee, you develop yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Keith, for sharing that insight, because we all know that preparation is key, not just in a referee situation, but be it any profession. And specifically, if we talk about referees, they can get a lot of insights from the way two teams are playing, and accordingly, they are in for a very physical battle on the pitch because they need to run more if a team is pressing high. So, all these things can give a lot of insight to a budding referee moving forward. And to just summarize this session in a nutshell, I would like to understand the closing remarks of both of you because we are running short of time. I would like to know, first of all, from Mr. Vinod, that how do you see the role of technology moving forward from now on? Because there will be the FIFA offside technology in place. And how do you think referees can actually improve their decision making moving forward?
Yeah, so very quickly, like I said, I think technology will be going hand in hand. We have seen that FIFA wants to improve or wants to include this more and more to help referees in this regard. You see also the performance of the referees physically. It's increased a lot. When you look at the training methods and you look at how they perform, like Mr. Hacker was saying, there's a lot of pre-match preparation that has to be put in. And that's why also technology, I feel FIFA is doing the right thing by trying to improve and bring more technology. They have the FIFA Innovation Program. It's only going to help more companies, startups, try to improve and bring more solutions. And yeah, for me, I think at the end of the day, you want a game where everyone can enjoy the game, enjoy the match, and also go home thinking that, the best decisions were made, also supporting the players and the managements behind the teams. So I think technology will play a very, very big role in the future also.
Thank you for that, sir. And moving to Mr. Hackett, what do you feel about the future now that we are seeing this kind of technology emerging? Do you think that there is still, a lot of scope for improvement, or do you still think that, especially in Southeast Asian countries, what kind of technology can still be brought in place?
I think that we look at the world scene in terms of technology and what is important. And I think FIFA recognize that what they've got is they've got technology that is pretty expensive at the moment and only available to the top elite leagues. I think that Vinod has touched on the need for the cost implications to be reduced dramatically so that more and more people, referees, are given the opportunity of the advantage of technology. So technology is with us. It will stay with us. Can we get the costs down? I'm sure we can. Is it an aid to refereeing? Absolutely. But to those referees who are listening in, who are not operating at the elite level, there are simple things like smart watches that can be used to aid the timing element of a game and perhaps monitor certain aspects of your heart rate and the distance covered. So I think that these technologies, some of them are at a cost that we can afford. So for me, the game will continue to develop. We as referees have to get as maximum amount of enjoyment out of our game and to always be on the learning curve. And when technology is available to us, if we can afford it, use it and use it wisely. And I think that when we look around the world, we're seeing the advancement of technology. I had that difficult task of bringing in the communication kits that we now see as standard with a great deal of difficulty. I brought them in. There was quite a high cost. The cost of those have come down. Buzzer flags, the costs have already come down and are used more extensively around the world. So technology, it was expensive when some of it I introduced. Goal line technology is still expensive because of the systems involved. But yeah, let's continue as referees to enjoy our participation in the game and work towards accurate performances that we all enjoy watching and participating in our great game.
Thank you so much, sir. It is, indeed a very good thing that technology is going to still continue and the game will flourish along with the technology. And we just hope that the costs come down because moving forward, we all know that everything is going to rise. So I'm just hoping that we can get, cost effective technology in place, which will not just help Southeast Asian countries, but the global football scenario will change and we'll be able to enjoy the beautiful game. So, with this, I would like to thank both of our esteemed panelists for sharing a lot of enriching insights on this subject matter. And I would like to thank, Mr. Keith, who has been a revolutionary in the domain of football referees for so many years, and Mr. Vinod, who is doing extensive research, and we look to, see some of your solutions being implemented on a big stage. So we look forward to it and thank you for joining today's session.
Thank you.
Thank you, dude.
Take,
Thank you, Vinod.
take criticism front up, learn from the feedback, grow, evolve, change, adapt. Do it all the referee way. I can't exaggerate enough how interesting this session was. Thank you so much, Ganesan. Again, reiterating the fact that it was a pleasure to host you, Mr. Keith Hackett and Mr. Vinod Dhanraj. Thank you for entertaining us with your valuable insights. And with that, we are ending today's sessions on a high. Thank you so much for joining us virtually.